Parvati Bhagini, you can start.
Hari Om. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitaamrutavarshiniim Bhagavatim Ashtadashaadhyayiniim Amba Tvamanusandaddhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshiniim Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलम् गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधना बोधितम् लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद् भारत पंकजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुल्लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। हरि ओम्।
धन्यवादः भगिनी। Narayanam Padmabhuvam Vasishtam Shaktim cha Tatputra Parasharancha Vyasam Shukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogindra Mathasya Shishyam Shri Shankaracharya Matasya Padma Padam cha Hasta Malakam cha Shishyam Tam Totakam Vartikakaramanyaan Asmadgurun Santatamanatosmi Shruti Smriti Purananamalayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krito Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam Param varishtham brahmishtham Paramananda-rupinam Paramarthananda-yatim Sadgurum pranatosmyaham. So in the second half of the 18th chapter, beginning from the 41st verse onwards, Lord Krishna is summarizing the central teaching of the Gita, emphasizing the two stages of spiritual sadhana in the form of karma yoga and upasana yoga, and all spiritual disciplines which will refine the mind, they all come under karma yoga only. By the refinement of the mind, what we mean is the mind is getting a sincere and deep desire for spiritual wisdom. That is one, right? The deep desire for moksha, right? This very desire is an indication of mental refinement. So none of you need to have that doubt. If you are able to sustain the interest in attending Gita class and attending any other Vedanta class related to say it can be Prakarana Grantha, or it can be Upanishad, or Gita itself revision, or the Bhashyam, if you know Sanskritam well, all of them are indicative of mental refinement only. Because as a student, we often get this doubt. Are we improving? Are we on this path, right? So the first indicator of mental refinement is that we get a sincere and deep desire for spiritual wisdom. Right? So that's the first one. The second meaning of mental refinement is not only there is a deep desire for spiritual knowledge, the mind is ready for receiving the teaching also. Right? By now you would have realized, especially people who have been exposed to various professions, various, kinds of studies, college, right? And who's actively trying to learn, right? The big thing that hits you is this is one knowledge which is extremely subtle, right? And you don't understand it in the first pass. At least I definitely felt like that for the first few years. So you can also share with me if you feel like that, because you start wondering, a person with a normal IQ, right, would get something in the first run, and that is the first, I would say, it's a kind of a hit, tattu we say, no, in Tamil, on the head, a knock on the head for the intellectual, the kind of arrogance or the ahankara, right, that is there in the mind. You start thinking, oh, okay, this is a subject that is not that easily graspable. So the second meaning of mental refinement is the mind gets more and more receptive to this extremely subtle knowledge, right? So if that is happening, and if you are, able to understand it better, that itself means that we are getting more and more refinement, right? And as Swamiji puts it very nicely, he will say, he says, the student comes and tells Swamiji, Swamiji, the first time you did Gita and the second time you did Gita, you have improved so much and you've done a great job in teaching. The truth is that we as students have gone through the path and we have more mental refinement and we are able to understand and grasp the teaching much better, right? So the subject is so profound and therefore both of these indicate mental refinement. Mumukshutvam, that is an interest in moksha, as well as the mind itself being ready for it, right? So as we have seen before, our normal idea about ourselves is, I am small dot in the vast creation. I'm an insignificant living being in this infinite creation. This is our conventional idea about ourselves and the world and the spiritual teaching, right? Vedanta, the mind, right? Vedanta creates a mind-boggling change. It reverses this vision, right? What is the reversed vision? Mayeva sakalam jatam, Mai sarvam pratishtitam, Mai sarvam layam yati, Brahmadvayam asmyaham, right? So I always remember this, the minute I speak about this, how beautifully the Upanishad, Kaivalya Upanishad brings this out, right? So I am not a dot within the vast creation, but the whole creation is a dot in the infinite me. First, nobody believes this, right? So they say, oh, this is some story, right? And Vedanta is trying to condition the mind. Nobody can even dream of this idea, right? And Vedanta is trying to pass on this message until the person is totally convinced, right? If this message has to be received and I have to be convinced, the mind can't be ordinary. It has to be extremely refined and subtle, right? So, drishyate tvagryaya buddhya sukshmaya sukshmadarshibhihi. Kathopanishad 1.3.12 says, being hidden in all the beings, that Atma is not evident. However, it is seen by the people of extremely subtle vision who have a sharp and subtle intellect. Therefore, by refinement, what we mean is a deep desire, right, for the spiritual knowledge. And the second part is our mind itself being ready to receive this message and retaining and assimilating the message, right? That I am not a dot in the vast creation, but the vast creation is in me, right? So the entire creation arises out of me, is sustained by me, and resolves unto me, right? And I am that Advitiyam Brahman. So therefore, the preparation required is not ordinary because the teaching is mind-boggling. Therefore, Karma Yoga way of life is required and also for a considerably long period of time. So therefore, Krishna emphasizes Karma Yoga repeatedly in the Gita. The second stage is Jnana Yoga, in which I'm actually involved in receiving the wisdom. So while Karma Yoga is Jnana Yogyata Prapti, Jnana Yoga is Jnana Prapti. Here in this condensation of Karma Yoga, which we are seeing now, Lord Krishna says, a person can take up any occupation in life and use that very occupation as a contribution to the creation, which is none other than God himself as an avatara. Very, very important message to the grihasthas and the professionals. It is immaterial what occupation you do, right? You treat that as Karma Yoga, right? So while we talk about several types of incarnations of God, like Matsya Avatara, Kurma Avatara, Krishna Avatara, Rama Avatara, right? The universe is an incarnation of the Lord extending, right? Bhagavan alone has manifested in the form of universe. If you remember the 7th chapter, we talked about Para Prakriti as well as Apara Prakriti, right? So the Para Prakriti of Ishvara alone is the sentient and the insentient part is the Apara Prakriti, right? So we saw this. And Lord says, whatever occupation I take up and whatever contribution I do through that occupation can be converted into Nitya Puja. So the Nitya Puja is of two types. One is a ritualistic puja a person can do daily in the morning. in the form of Panchayatana Puja, any puja, shorter puja, whatever, bigger puja, right? And there is a still bigger puja, which is Yadyat Karma Karomi Tattat Akilam Shambhodavaradhanam. Whatever contribution I do to the universe through my profession or career, I don't take it as a materialistic activity. I take it as a spiritual activity, right? So this Pujya Swamiji, Dayananda Swamiji always says, and this is the important aspect we must remember. Hinduism does not differentiate secular activity and sacred activity in the form of two separate things. The secular activity also can be made sacred. Your professional activity can be made sacred by a change in our attitude. And that significant attitudinal change by which we convert even a normal profession to a sacred puja. That internal attitude Krishna talks about in the significant 46th verse that we saw in the last class, right? So we saw this verse. Swakarmana tam abhyarchya. Whatever be the profession, right? And in the Mahabharata, it talks about a meat seller whose traditional profession is selling meat. He is a meat seller, which involves himsa. Even that, he's inherited that profession and he converts that into a karma yoga and he becomes refined, right? So, and a brahmachari goes to him, I believe, to learn Vedanta. I haven't come across this portion, but Swamiji talks about this in Mahabharata. Mahabharata is very large, right in front of my eyes. I have 9 volumes sitting. So if you have to read the original Mahabharata, I don't know how long it will take, because Ramayana, if you read 1 sarga a day or 2 sargas a day, it takes a year plus or more than that to complete. In Mahabharata is 1 lakh plus verses, right? So I don't know this section, but apparently a brahmachari goes to this meat seller and he teaches Vedanta. That means what? One need not change the profession. Whatever be the chosen profession, chosen according to my own temperament is the best, or chosen based on my own family, tradition, heredity. Whatever be the karma, it is called swakarma. Swakarmana, through that swakarma, doing it diligently, sincerely, and excellently, right? Trying to excel in that profession, right? And without changing too much. All the time, if you change, you don't have time to excel in that profession, right? So you get experience and we are able to look at it from different angles and gather more and more expertise in this. And no profession is inferior. So all fields of service are important for the society, just as in the body, all the limbs are important. In Taittiriya Upanishad, it talks about even those organs which are involved in removing the bodily waste, excretory organs. Veda says those organs should be also considered sacred. Shema iti vachi, yoga kshema iti pranapanayoho, karmeti hastayoho, gatiriti padayoho, vimuktiriti payau. Right? In Bhrigu of Taittiriya Upanishad, hopefully we will see all this, the serious students who want to continue. The 10th Anuvaka, this comes. One should meditate on that Brahman, right? As what? As acquisition, preservation, and exhalation and inhalation, as evacuation in the anus, as movement in the feet. All of those meditations are talked about there, right? You don't look down upon anything. We understand the value of each of these organs, whether it is solid waste or liquid waste removal, etc. Right? Therefore, never feel inferior. Whatever be your profession, dedicate that as an offering to the Lord. By leading such a life, which is called karma yoga, and never bothering too much about the earning or the salary. It is important, but not giving over importance to it, right? Money pradhana or dhana pradhana becomes karmi, right? But occupational excellence or operational excellence in your own profession, right? That brings about your change in attitude, and that is a karma yogi attitude. And by doing that, what happens is you are remembering the Lord all the time as Vishwarupa Ishvara. Because the remembrance of the Lord, right? Work becomes flower, like worship, right? So the consequences, the result becomes a prasada of the Lord. Because of my attitude, I learn from life's experience. A reacting mind doesn't learn. A non-reacting mind learns from experiences. And such a karma yogi mind understands that it is risky to emotionally depend upon anything in this world. Right? This is a very important spiritual lesson. Never depend upon the ephemeral world for peace, security, and happiness. Swamiji always gives this example of this cardboard chair in a Navaratri Kulu, right? You cannot sit on it. You can see it, admire it, beautify it, all of that, right? Similarly, don't depend on the world for the emotional needs, right? For peace, security, and happiness, right? May you go from Anitya Prapancha to Nitya Ishvaraha, Anitya Karyam to Nitya Karanam. And when my mind turns towards the eternal cause of this creation, which is permanent, which is stable, then it becomes more emotionally reliant. So world dependence to God dependence is karma yoga. And I also used to say from God dependence to self dependence is the jnana yoga journey, right? So I will start at understanding what is Karana Ishvara, right? And I never knew that in Saidapet there's a temple called Karaneshwar temple. I never knew what was the significance of that temple. So understanding this Karana Ishvara, Brahman as, with Maya as Ishvara, who is the creator of this universe, right? Therefore, Krishna said, Manavaha Karma Yogi Siddham Vindati. Vindati meaning attains. Here the word Siddhi means Antakarana Shuddhi. The Karma Yogi gets Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampattihi. Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampattim Vindati. Jnana Yogyatam Vindati. He turns towards spirituality. Materialistic life is converted into a spiritual life. His value for spiritual life becomes so deep that he does not mind even dedicating the entire life for spirituality. That is why in Vedic culture, the life of a monk, a monastic life came into existence, and it is only for what? Dedicating exclusively life for the spiritual purpose. After you have gone through Grihastha, you've gone through your profession, achieved enough, right? But you are a karma yogi when you are in your profession, and therefore you benefit as well as the world benefits from that, right? So this person later on considers dedicating the life for spirituality, which is a worthy thing, which is the primary purushartha for which the Manushya Janma has come about, right? We saw that in Viveka Chudamani also, Durlabham Trayametat, right? It talks about Manushya Janma being very rare, and then having Mumukshutvam is also rare, and getting a teacher is also very rare, right? So, continuing. Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha, Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha, Paradharma Swanushtitat, Paradharma Swanushtitat, Swabhavaniyatam Karma, Swabhavaniyatam Karma, Kurvannapnoti Kilbisham, Kurvannapnoti Kilbisham. Here Krishna says that you take your own time to choose your occupation, but once you have decided your swadharma, stick to that swadharma. According to your designation in the family, your designation in the society, your designation in the corporation or the profession in which you work, once swadharma is decided, stick to that swadharma and do what is expected of you according to swadharma. If you choose one swadharma and do the karma belonging to some other department, which is called paradharma, it will disturb the harmony of the corporation or the society. So imagine you have a huge orchestra of 100, different instruments. And if the violinist suddenly decides that he can play differently, imagine the symphony will get impacted, right? So therefore you must be aware of your position in the creation and never disturb the harmony. Whether you have taken to Brahmana profession, Kshatriya profession, Vaishya profession, or Shudra profession, here we must remember If these words are disturbing, we can as well use teacher, ruler, trader, and service provider, because that is the, as per the the correct interpretation, it is guna brahmana, guna kshatriya, guna vaishya, and guna shudra. So therefore it is equivalent to teaching, academic profession, or ruler, administrator, or a trader, a businessman, or a service provider, right? The fourth one. Whatever be your role, don't disturb the harmony by doing something else which is not allotted to you, right? Swamiji often gives this example. Imagine a traffic policeman, right? He is trying to function. He sees a mentally disturbed person on the road, right? Instead of clearing the way for the traffic, suppose he gets down from his, wherever he is directing the signal, and he starts counseling the mentally disturbed person. What will happen? That too in a peak hour, right? So already you have a problem with all kinds of people violating, right? So if he drops his swadharma and becomes a compassionate human being, there's a huge difficulty, right? So when I am a traffic policeman, my swadharma is not counseling a person, but actually doing my duty as a traffic controller, right? So this is just a gross example, but very useful to use this in the context of a profession also. Sometimes you might be forced to take very difficult decisions in your role, so you cannot have misplaced sympathy at that time, right? So therefore Krishna says swadharmana shreyan, following one's own duty is shreyan, superior to paradharma, doing somebody else's duty. So anushtitat, even if he can do that in a better way, right? So as long as he is on duty of controlling the traffic, the policeman is expected to do his swadharma and not paradharma, right? So it is very important. Swabhava niyatam karma kurvan, continue to perform the swadharma, which is determined by one's own swabhava or temperament. Even if it involves sometimes himsa, right? It will not produce papam, like the policeman or like the hangman who hangs people as per the capital punishment verdict, or a surgeon who has to cut open a part, right? So a policeman, a soldier, and in a battle, Arjuna in his position in the Mahabharata battle will have to do his duty. Nitya karmas also, all Nitya karmas will come into this category. Therefore, kurvan api kilbisham napnoti. Therefore, Arjuna, you will not get papam. In fact, you will get punyam for doing your duty. Exactly like on Republic Day, different people are given so many army awards, right? Gallantry awards, right? And for killing the terrorists, etc., they are rewarded. So therefore, Arjuna, don't worry, continue your swadharma. Continuing. सहजं कर्म कौन्तेय, सहजं कर्म कौन्तेय, सदोषमपि न त्यजेत्, सदोषमपि न त्यजेत्, सर्वारम्भा हि दोषेण, सर्वारम्भा हि दोषेण, धूमेनाग्निरिवावृताः, धूमेनाग्निरिवावृताः. Here Lord Krishna says, whatever be the occupation or profession one takes to, it will have certain advantages also, and every occupation will have so-called occupational hazards also. There is no perfect profession which has got only plus points and which has got no minus points, right? So you cannot have a profession with fully minus points, fully plus points also. So if a profession involves traveling, there are people say, oh, it's wonderful, Swamiji, I go to different places, and when I'm allocated a city to visit, of course I'll do my duty, and weekends I will go and see temples, etc. I don't have to spend on my own and go, because the company is anyway sending me to that city. I can go and see all the temples close by, right? So you can see it as an advantage also. Another person complains, Swamiji, there's so much of weather conditions, different food, different water, different time zones, and then I fall sick often, I can't spend time with my family, right? So now traveling profession is good or bad? You can talk for or against it, right? I still remember that I really used all my travel and the weekends that I was away from my family to listen to Upanishads, because you will never get that kind of time when you're busy running with the family and with your profession, right? So it is all how you look at it, that each person, the way he or she looks at the profession, the plus or minus, both can be converted to being useful for us, right? So similarly, people say that, in IT you get a lot of money, etc. But the other flip side is that we are going to see all the bad sides only now. For 4 decades, three decades, sitting in front of the computer 18 hours, 20 hours, right? That is also very bad. So they say distant pastures are always green, right? Greener pastures. Therefore, Lord Krishna says, Hey Kaunteya, Sahajam Karma, the profession that has come to you, either because of heredity, Sahajam means hereditarily chosen profession, or Swabhavajam, right? Mentioned before, which has come according to your inclination. Whatever you have chosen, Yatyaje, may you continue in that, because the more you continue, the more you get experience from different angles. And that's why you see sometimes, in companies, parents, grandparents, everybody does the same work in the company, right? They retire also like that. And then they have, so many people, on the other hand, there are colleagues who are there for 30 years, 40 years. They become like brother and sister also, right? So what it has both good advantages as well as disadvantages, right? But we convert whatever negative is there to an advantage, and so that we can excel in that. Sadoshamapi, even though it has its disadvantages, sadoshamapi natyajet, may you not give up. Sarvarambhahi, right, means all the professions are karmani. Here arambha means karma. All the occupations, doshena avritaha, are associated with their own disadvantages also, right? So in even when the Swamijis used to complete the brahmacharis used to complete their course in the ashramas, the Chinmaya mission used to give them two options: the Jnana Yajna method, which is sharing, right? Going all over the world, city to city and sharing, and Vijnana Mandiraha, right? There were two methods given. So in Jnana Yajna, you go from place to place, 7 days you stay, then you do this, and then you come. A particular chapter of Gita you do, right? You reach more number of people and you create greater awareness. In Vijnana Mandira, apparently they will not travel, they will remain in the same place. And as Swamiji puts it, he chose that, right? He doesn't travel, he doesn't like to travel, Swami Paramarthanandaji. But the advantages, as he says, today I decide that this one verse is so beautiful and I'm reveling in it, and I can bring lot of, cross references of Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, and talk about it. I have no problem. I can just spend the entire 1 hour on one verse, right? And I enjoy that, because nobody is going away. Next week also I'm going to meet them. Whereas in Jnana Yajna, the problem is you get to see places, etc. But in 7 days you have to complete the chapter. So you have a little bit of concern around that. That is the disadvantage. So you can't go into the depth, right? So a person who doesn't like traveling and who enjoys in reveling will choose the Vijnana Mandira aspect, right? So he gave us this example when he was teaching us. So there are two types. Both has its plus and minus, right? So Sadosham Api, even though it could have some negatives, right? Dhumena Agnihi, there is a fire, there will be smoke also, right? Along with the fire, you would have smoke also. There is a question here, maybe it's related to this. What is the inborn duty in verse 48? How to identify at an early stage of life? Is it to be identified by self or by gurus? Yeah. In the corporate world, it is easier to identify, right? Now, on this aspect, I've covered this when I was talking about Sattva, Rajas, and Tamoguna. In fact, in management schools, when I talk about it, there's a paper also. Maybe I can share that paper. Let me see if somebody has done a research on this. The in management schools, this can be used, and even parents can play a role in it. For instance, very early in life, if a child is showing, I'm picking up an example, a random example, a child is showing an intrinsic interest in teaching. Okay. Now, I know that in society, people believe that the corporate world and corporate life brings in a lot more money. Now, if you push a child who has interest in teaching an academic career into a corporate world, it can be disastrous, because the person may not be able to swim through all the, the kinds of requirements that a corporate profession puts on a person. So if you're able to identify this early in life and it's clear, right, then there is nothing wrong. We as parents do not have to stop the child from pursuing that, right? The least we can do is that. I see many parents don't want to permit the children to do that. Similarly, arts. I know of children who've done so well in painting right from standard 9 onwards. I think today the awareness is much better, and they start, identifying these and permitting the child to go into that. And similarly, when it comes to the corporate world, it's a lot easier. If you're able to identify this sattva, raja, and tamoguna aspects early on, right? Especially the mix and the service orientation, you can, use that during one-on-one appraisals. If you're, because we don't want to make this too professional or too corporate oriented. And you can advise the person to take up a technical role, who's not interested in managing people, right? Instead of pushing that person to managing a large team, etc. So maybe I'll send you that. I'll share the link of that paper also. I have it somewhere, and I don't want to get into this discussion now because it's more reserved for a management audience where I teach Gita, which is applied to management. Okay, I'll send you the link later. Okay, so continuing. असक्त बुद्धि सर्वत्र, असक्त बुद्धि सर्वत्र, जितात्मा विगत स्पृहः, जितात्मा विगत स्पृहः, नैष्कर्म्य सिद्धिं परमां, नैष्कर्म्य सिद्धिं परमां, संन्यासेनाधिगच्छति. So what will happen to such a karma yogi? What will be the direction of his travel is talked about. Initially, a person has got both worldly desires and spiritual desires. And spiritual desire may be there very little or nil, may not be even there, right? Then when he starts slowly going through reading spiritual books or goes to satsanga and with some Mahatma, the spiritual desire may be there in one corner of the mind, right? So thus people generally start with worldly desires and spiritual desires may be absent, and at some time in life, the spiritual desire may come. Who am I? What is the purpose of this life, right? And I'm getting so much in life, yes, but one day I may lose everything, right? So is there something or someone called God? Why did God create this universe? Why did this universe come into existence, right? These fundamental questions regarding oneself, regarding the world, and regarding God, right? The intellect keeps asking, especially when tragedy strikes, right? Everybody feels like becoming a philosopher. In today's situation, we can feel that more, right? So especially when somebody dies, or we have this kind of epidemic, etc. So a karma yogi becomes spiritual more and more, right, as this exposure happens, and the spiritual desire becomes more and more dominant, and it begins to swallow all other worldly desires, right? So as a time comes when a person considers that the whole life can be dedicated to the pursuit of spirituality, it will come. Generally, what happens by that time is he would have contributed sufficiently to brahmacharya ashrama, grihastha ashrama, to the world at large. He has successfully gone through, he has fulfilled the worldly desires, and it will naturally increase, right? If he has led the life of karma yoga, that is important. Okay, so finally, and also as your children grow up and they go through adolescence, they get married, they have their spouses and their own way of living, their prarabdham, etc., starts impacting us, then we automatically start turning towards the spiritual side, right? So the punyam also, the materialistic punyam that we start developing, sometimes that itself may start taking us to a guru. And then, with that guru, gradually one turns from what they say, pravritti marga to nivritti marga. Therefore, Lord Krishna says, asakta buddhihi, more and more detachment from worldly, finite, materialistic pursuits of name, fame, money, position, possession, etc. Right? It will happen. Asakta buddhihi, right? So this too much botheration about, do I have a Mercedes Benz? Do I have a great TV which is on the wall of my entire room? All that will start coming down, right? So our interests will also become different. Not bothering too much about our dress, our skin. Vedanta doesn't say you should not dress properly, but too much of luxurious way of living, all of that will start coming down. So isn't there something lasting in life? We'll start asking these questions. And asakta buddhihi means detached from those things which the whole world normally runs after. Sarvatra means dharma, artha, kama, and jitatma, the one who has got enough focus and self-control by the practice of karma yoga and upasana yoga, right? So in even daily Sandhya Vandanam, the focus on Aham Brahmasmi is there. Suddenly we will start looking at the meaning of it and start, meditating with the meaning in our mind, right? So a karma yogi, by following japa, etc., becomes a jitatma. Jitatma meaning mastered the mind and sense organs to some extent, right? Here Atma is not Chidananda Atma, but Jitatma is the sense organs and mind, right? So Vigata Spraha means the craving for more and more artha and kama, right? So that is not there now, right? So Vigata Spraha is no more craving for the crazy things of the world, and such a person, Paramam Naishkarmya Siddhim Adhigacchati, will ultimately attain moksha. Paramam Naishkarmya Siddhi means the ultimate moksha, right? Why is it called Naishkarmya Siddhi? I will tell you after I complete this explanation. You take it as moksha, right? So not directly it will, karma yoga will not give, but karma yoga will give us jnana yogyata, and then therefore sannyasa representing jnana yoga here, right? So grihastha ashrama for karma yoga and sannyasa ashrama for jnana yoga, where he can study the scriptures and then spend time on mananam, the reflection, and nididhyasanam, right? So the sense organs are called the lower self. So he can transcend all of them and he can come to the Atma Swarupam, which we have discussed in the 13th, 14th, 15th chapter, right? So this is 18th chapter and this is a winding up chapter. We must remember that. Therefore, sannyasena means jnana yogena adhigacchati. One will attain moksha, right? So the teacher Krishna himself is a big grihastha here, right? So therefore Lord Krishna knows that karma yoga is important, and then he finally attains moksha or naishkarmya siddhi here. So this naishkarmya siddhi is a very profound and technical word, and it is so significant that one of the disciples of Adi Shankaracharya, the Sringeri Parampara Prathama Acharya, Sureshwaracharya, wrote a full book explaining this one word called Naishkarmya Siddhi, a profound text revealing the truth of the universe as the Atma. Atma is called Nishkarma. Nishkarma means that which is infinite, right? Nishkarma, Atma being the truth which is all pervading, it is called Nishkarma. Nirgatani karmani yasmat saha. For those people who are interested in the Samskrita aspect of this, it is a Pradi Bahuvrihi Samasa. Naishkarmya Siddhi means accomplishing the status of Atma, right? So that is the meaning of that. So Jnana Yoga is going to be summarized in the following verses. Let us continue. Yeah. Verse 49 does remind us of Upadesha Sara of Ramana Maharishi. I will give the quotations later. Yes. Siddhim prapto yata brahma, siddhim prapto yata brahma, tatapnoti nibodhame, tatapnoti nibodhame, समासेनैव कौन्तेय, समासेनैव कौन्तेय, निष्ठा ज्ञानस्य या परा. From 50 to 55 is Jnana Yoga Sadhana. Here Krishna says, Siddhim Praptaha, the one who has successfully gone through Karma Yoga and attained the necessary refinement for Jnana Yoga. Here Siddhi means Chitta Shuddhihi. Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampattihi, right? So through Karma Yoga, he has got this, right? By the practice of Jnana Yoga, he will attain Brahman, Brahma Apnoti. Right? Through Jnana Yoga, we have to add. Through Jnana Yoga, he will ultimately get Brahman. Yatha apnoti tata samasena me nibodha. Samasena means briefly, know from me. Right? Me here is Panchami. Right? So Asmat Shabdaha Panchami, Ekavachanam, Panchami Vibhakti, me from me nibodha. How that person will accomplish, I shall tell you briefly. Samasena, briefly. Because in the 18th chapter, he is winding up, right? Krishna cannot deal with Jnana Yoga again. He's already elaborately dealt with it in several chapters. 4th, 5th, 6th, 12th, 13th and 14th. So if you can remember all of them, it will be very, very useful. So Krishna is just reminding here, right? Therefore, I shall tell you the process by which we receive the teaching. That is called Shravanam and Mananam. Shravanam meaning receiving the teaching from a competent Guru, and Mananam is convincing my intellect by answering whatever questions the intellect arises. And after receiving the conviction, the final process is called Nididhyasanam, which is internalization of this knowledge. I shall talk about all these three, highlighting the Nididhyasanam part. Thus, Nididhyasanam, the process of internalization, which is otherwise called Vedantic meditation, is going to be highlighted. So, Jnanasya Nishta, here Nishta means assimilation, internalization, abidance. Ya para, which is the height of that abidance, I will talk about in the following verses. Buddhya Vishuddhaya Yuktaha, Buddhya Vishuddhaya Yuktaha, Dhrityatmanam Niyamya cha, Dhrityatmanam Niyamya cha, Shabdadin Vishayan Styaktva, Shabdadin Vishayan Styaktva, Ragadveshau Vyudasya cha, Ragadveshau Vyudasya cha. As I said, Jnana Yoga consisting of three disciplines, Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam. Here, Lord Krishna is keeping Shravanam and Mananam, assuming that we remember the teaching given before, and he is going to highlight Vedantic meditation only. Vedantic meditation also has been taught in one of the chapters of the Gita. If you remember which chapter, it will be really great. Otherwise, also it's fine. It is chapter 6 called Dhyana Yoga. The 6th chapter is summarized in these few verses. Look at the ease with which Krishna is traversing now the entire Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, right? You can appreciate if you have, regularly revised it. Otherwise, fine. When you go through it second time, third time, fourth time, you will start enjoying more and more, right? So, what is the teaching I have to assimilate? Let us summarize, right? So, even though Krishna does not do it, it will be worth remembering here. So, what does a person learn in Jnana Yoga? Right? The first step is through repeated study of the scriptures under a guru, understanding that every one of us is a mixture of two components. That's the first thing. Everyone is a mixture of two basic components. One component is a well-known component. What is that? This solid 60 kg, 70 kg, 90 kg body. Nobody can miss, right? And the mind and the sense organs also, it is evident component. Visible to me internally, visible to others also is the body. So I will call all of this the visible component. So the scriptures point out that there is an entire visible component of the individual, and all of this is made up of matter. Even the body, the mind and sense, if you remember the Tattva Bodha, that is the introduction to Vedanta portion, I called it the invisible part in a way, but it is sukshma. Mind and sense organs are sukshma. So you can feel. So for the mind, it is visible, right? So all of this is made out of either sthula bhutani or sukshma bhutani, from the pancha bhutani or pancha bhautikani. Okay. So the entire visible component is made up of material only, elements only, the chemicals only. Now, if the visible body is a material component, the same portion I have taught in Introduction to Vedanta and in the initial portions of the Gita, I would request each one of you to reflect and see whether your understanding is getting better and better of this subject. Okay. So, if the visible component is a material component, how does it have sentiency? Because matter by nature, right, is insentient. I experienced this desk, even though the desk is called what? Narkali in Tamil, right? Chair is called Narkali, four-legged one, right? It does not go for a walk. When I'm sitting and teaching in a chair, the chair doesn't get up, right? So if the desk does not move, the chair does not move, right? What is the difference? That is also made up of matter. This body-mind complex is also made up of either gross matter or subtle matter, right? So the visible material component is an inert bundle of matter. If it is now self-aware and aware of the external world, there must be some other principle, the invisible enlivening principle. I have to admit that there is an invisible enlivening principle. Without that, the body can't be sentient. Just as I know the fan can't rotate by itself, right? Because when I buy the fan in the shop, it doesn't rotate. Only when there is this invisible principle called the electrical energy, the fan rotates. It is blessed by this invisible principle. So what is this invisible principle, right? For that, you don't even require the Gita, right? There is an invisible principle. There is something that is making this body sentient. So the awareness is given by some other principle, which alone is called Atma. For that, you need the Gita to tell you, which is the Chaitanya Tattvam. So this is the first lesson of Jnana Yoga, right? Then the next lesson is what? We must remember the 5 features of the invisible consciousness principle. Just as the invisible electricity has its own features, similarly, the invisible Chaitanya Tattvam also has its features as revealed by the scriptures. Actually, each one of these consciousness features is available in all the Upanishads that we are going to study. Each one of these you will see elaborately dealt with. We can do a mapping actually, right? Somebody has done this mapping. When you're all at a stage where I can share that, I will do that, right? So how beautifully Swamiji has extracted it in these form of 5 features, right? So the invisible electricity has its own features, and similarly the invisible Chaitanya Tattvam has its features as revealed by the scriptures, right? So let's go through it quickly. Consciousness is not a part, product or property of the material body. Consciousness is an independent principle which pervades and enlivens the material body. Consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of the material body. Consciousness continues to survive even when the material medium goes. And as Swami Chinmayananda says, when you remove the bulb from the holder, the light goes away, but the power continues there. If you want to realize that power, you can put your finger and check, right? Not only you will, as he says, not only you will get to know whether there is electricity or not, the person will also get immediate moksha, he jocularly says, right? So similarly, even if the body dies, the life ends. The Chaitanya Tattvam survives, and this is the fourth feature. And the final feature is the pure consciousness without body medium can't be recognized by us. And after death, the surviving consciousness is very much there, but it is not available for transaction. We must remember that, right? So we should reorient ourselves, right, to this kind of a thinking, right? This is what we do in Vedantic meditation ultimately, right? So the toughest stage of Jnana Yoga is this, claiming this as my real nature, right? So we use the word I from birth to death. That I word we use is a non-variable one. Remember that. In young age we say I. In middle age we say I. I is the constant word. But the body has got completely replaced in 12 years. All the cells have got replaced, right? So the non-variable word is I here, right? And that is the same. Now Vedanta says, Jnana Yoga says, that non-variable I must be connected to the non-variable component of the individual. So non-changing I must be associated with the non-changing component. And what is the non-changing component? Body or consciousness? Body is changing. As I said, from black hair, it will become white hair. From, flawless skin, you will have all kinds of skin, right? As you age, the nerves will start coming up and all of that, right? So as I said, every 12 years, the whole body is replaced. How can this arriving, changing, departing body be connected to the permanent I? Therefore, learning to shift the I from the changing, perishable, mortal body to the changeless, non-perishable, immortal consciousness, right? We are not human beings seeking spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having temporarily a human experience. Thus, instead of claiming I am the mortal body, learning to claim I am the immortal Atma. So, in the previous slide that I said, consciousness is not a part, product, or property of the body. The shift happens, manobuddhya hankara chittani naham. So you go into the meditation, think I am not a part, product, or property of the body, right? I live in this body, right? And I am not limited by the boundaries of the body. That is the shift, right? So we are all spiritual beings having this temporary human experience. Thus, instead of claiming I am a mortal body, we learn to claim I am the immortal Atma. Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. The immediate benefit of claiming the immortality is freedom from the fear of mortality. The greatest fear is the fear of old age and death, right? The fear not only comes during old age, in fact, right from birth, a sense of insecurity is always there, right? So, I am the Atma with an incidental body, very useful, right? The body is an instrument that I use for accomplishing all these purusharthas, right? So, therefore, dropping the attachment to the body is dropping ahankara and mamakara. That is why mamakara is my family, my possession, my profession, right? So, aham, mama, raga, dvesha, right? Diluting that is the only way by which we can make this shift. So, the shifting is the final stage of Jnana Yoga. right? So first stage is understanding that there are two parts. Then second is understanding that Atma is that, consciousness, which is the sentient part, which is lending consciousness to the body. The third one is claiming Aham Brahmasmi, right? That is the Jnana. When I say Aham Brahmasmi, it is not only the truth of this body, but this is the truth of all the bodies, the entire universe, the truth of Ishvara, right? So it is looking, all of this is Vishwarupa Ishvara, right? And all those obstacles that we have for getting this conviction, we have to remove. And that is Vishuddha Buddhihi. It means conviction in knowledge. The word Buddhihi means here Jnanam, and Vishuddhi means clear Jnanam, right? So what do you mean by clear knowledge? A knowledge which is free from all vagueness and also all doubts, right? Doubt free, vagueness free, right? So I am immortal, the clear knowledge, right? So this is called Shravanam and Mananam. Up to this, acquiring this clear, doubtless knowledge is Shravanam and Mananam. Thereafter, we have to enter Nididhyasanam. The purpose of Nididhyasanam is removing the habitual thinking, right? So here it is worthwhile for us to remember this story of which I have narrated earlier, which is the Barbers Association, which I've told many times. So they decide to have a function, anniversary drama, where all of them are working on producing a show on Sita Kalyanam. Is the drama, right? So Vishwamitra is going to come and ask Dasharatha for the two Rama and Lakshmana, right? So what happens is they've been practicing for ages, right? Every day practicing their script, etc. But on the day of this drama, Dasharatha and Vishwamitra are on the stage, and this Dasharatha is seeing some 1,000 barbers all assembled with their family sitting there. He's getting nervous because he has he's sweating in his costume and his beard, and he sees Vishwamitra with a long beard, and he's very nervous and tension, fully ridden with tension. So what should he ask at this stage? He should say, please come, what do you want? Can I be of some help to you? Because after that the conversation should go towards Rama and Lakshmana being sent with Vishwamitra. Instead, what happens? He is so nervous, right? And he has practiced for a few months the script, but it is not still internalized. So he says, looking at Vishwamitra, please come. What do you want? Cutting or shaving? Why does he do that? Because he has not internalized the fact that he is Dasharatha, right? So even though outwardly he is an emperor, inwardly he is a barber. Similarly, we are all fundamentally finite, limited human beings. Vedanta tells you are not a person in the world, but you are Brahman in whom the world is a bubble. Mayeva sakalam jatam. From me the entire world arises, right? So we have to get out of this habitual thinking, and it requires long Vedantic meditation, right? And if I don't know Vedanta, how can I practice Vedantic meditation? So long years of Shravanam, Mananam, and then only you can do Vedantic meditation. Until then, we can do Saguna Upasana, Japa, etc. So Krishna gives the steps of Vedantic meditation for a senior student. Now you can decide, each one of you, whether you come under that senior category or junior category. At the appropriate time, you will think that you can switch format. You will realize this, right? Or you can speak to a guru, and you can continue the study until then, and continue Karma Yoga, and continue to get exposed to the teaching. And I ask my own intellect, right? Vishuddhya Buddhya Yuktaha, right? And the first condition is Vedantic conviction must be there, right? You can never practice without internal conviction. Jnanena, with a clear intellect. With a clear intellect here means knowledge, right? Aham Brahmasmi knowledge, right? You should not say my guru says. He should have that conviction in his mind, right? Making up the mind and making sure that the mind is fully convinced. And Dritya, with the willpower, Atmanam Niyamyacha, bringing the mind and focusing, bringing it from the external Anatma, turning it towards inside, restraining the sense objects. Shabdadin Vishayam Tyaktva. There are fivefold sense objects in this world, right? Shabda, Rupa, Sparsha, Rasa, Gandha. Turning from all of them, giving them up and focusing on this Aham Brahmasmi Dhyanam. So Raga Dvesho Vyudasya. Raga and Dvesha are two powerful mental attributes and they are repeatedly talked about, right? So when there is no Raga Dvesha and when I can turn away from this, right? So when the world no longer disturbs me, right? Because as long as Raga Dvesha is there, a disturbing object is called Vishayaha. A Padartha becomes a Vishayaha when it disturbs me, right? So Raga Dvesha must be reduced, and when that is reduced, right? So when you blunt it or reduce it, then slowly may you practice meditation. So some more things are going to be said here. We will look at it tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So do write to me if you're interested in the Upanishad classes. I have a WhatsApp group in which I will be announcing the date and how we will be doing it. So on 30th of May, most likely, we will have the Gita Mahatmyam session, which will be the concluding session. Any questions? Today I've tried to summarize Jnana Yoga because you can all reflect on yourself and see whether it is you're able to make more sense now out of it as compared to Introduction to Vedanta or the earlier chapters of the Gita. Any questions from anybody? Yeah, I'm just looking at the questions. Please inform your email ID. Yeah, my email ID is Sivaraman, SIVARAMAN .rama@gmail.com. It's here in this in this slide it is there. Sivaraman.rama@gmail.com. Hari Om. So Dhanyavadaha. Next week, tomorrow we will meet same time. Sorry, not next week. So tomorrow 6:25 p.m. we will meet.